It's showtime.
It's the pre-party with J. Cal.
We are professional wrestling.
I'm building an alliance.
You are tuned into
the absolute top of the mountain, the ultimate professional wrestling.
Alliance-wrestling.com.
What is up? It is the pre-party. Woo! With your boy J. Cal. This is a presentation of Alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. Guys, you guys show up, and that is for certain. I first and foremost want to thank everyone for being a part of the show today. I will get to you. We will talk NWA with everyone here in the audience and the crowd. You guys are dope, and I appreciate you. I respect you. Now, with that being said, today, 48 years ago today, the National Wrestling Alliance, well, brought this guy around. Today's the 48th birthday of the National Wrestling Alliance. 10 pounds of gold. And if you will, just humor me here for a second. Let's look at this video that I shot earlier today of my own personal replica title. See how many names you can call off on there. Now this title came into fruition again on July 20th, 1973. and was presented to, hey Lamb, thank you for hosting the show. This title was presented to none other than Harley Race. Harley Race was the first man to have this title, but was kind of made famous by Jack Briscoe. When Jack Briscoe, won the belt that night, he literally took the title off of Harley Race, and that belt essentially, back then it was, of course, drenched in red velvet, and it had gone through some changes over the years. But from 1973 to 1986, February 14th, 1986, that title represented the National Wrestling Alliance. It was the mountaintop, as Tim Storm called it. Sweet Charlotte, as Adam Pearce called it. That was the upper echelon of professional wrestling. That was the paramount, the zenith of pro wrestling. And the men that hold that belt were, like I said, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Giant Baba, Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, Tommy Wildfire Rich, Ric Flair, woo! And of course, Kerry Von Erich. That is amazing, right? And that was the end of the Jim Crockett Promotions time of recognizing that belt, of recognizing the 10 pounds of gold. Of course, as we go on throughout history, remember the Jim Crockett Promotions switched. They started to recognize the big gold belt that is synonymous with WCW, and that belt was held by a lot of greats too. Ricky Steamboat, Tatsuji Fujinami, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Ron Garvin, Sting, right? But that belt is not the 10 pounds of gold. And although it's the same lineage, I'm just wanting to emphasize on that 10 pounds of gold. This beautiful title belt that came with my AWA Remco action figures that always looked like a face to me. Someone pointed out that it looks like a sloth. And to me, this is the NWA. That title right there that I just showed you is the NWA. And as I talk about the other names who are synonymous with that belt, I mean, we mentioned Briscoe, Baba, Race, Briscoe, obviously, Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, all that. Then in the modern era, well, I guess this is what Dr. Stinson calls the wilderness area. You have like another 9 men to hold that title. Shane Douglas, Chris Candido, Dan the Beast Severn, Noah Ogawa, Gary Steele, Mike Rapada, Sabu, Steve Corino, and Shinya Hashimoto. Those are some great names there too. I mean, the legend of this belt, and this is called the Wilderness era. And some of these guys would go on to have deals with the WWE. Some of them would go on to work dates with WCW. Of course, in the likes of Sabu, he would go back to ECW and hold their world title again. Just a lot of great history. And then we get to that Impact era, right? Because as Hashimoto drops the belt to Severn never gets the opportunity to defend that title once he wins it because it goes directly to TNA. And that's when you get the likes of Ken Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man, right? You get Ron the Truth Killings, R-Truth, Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles, Raven, Rhino, Christian Cage, and Sting. Again, another 8 wrestlers who held that 10 pounds of gold during the TNA Impact era of the 10 pounds of gold. And then that brings us to the more modern era, and I can't even say it's the modern era, I guess you'd call this the Trowbridge era, where we got Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, Brent Albright, the Shooter, don't you know, Blue Demon Jr., yesterday was his birthday, happy birthday Blue Demon Jr., Colt Boom Boom Cabana, the Sheik, Tokyo Monster. Oh, okay. Well, let's end it right there, right? So so although Pierce would be the last man to hold that title, Sheik was the last new champion in that Trowbridge era. Then we would transition to the Bruce Tharpe era. I'm not going to get into the semantics why we have a different change in that era, but essentially the NWA had an ownership change. We'll just say that, okay? And in that time, the NWA stripped Adam Pearce of the title, or he forfeited, depending on who you ask. And they crowned a new champion. At our friends, the Dangerous Adrenaline Wrestling Gladiators, they crowned that new champion in it was a big hodgepodge match, but essentially Tokyo Monster Kahagas would become the first champion of the Bruce Tharp era, and then that would be followed by Rob Conway, the Iron Man. Then we would get Satoshi Kojima, one of my personal favorites, Hiroshi Tenzin, Jax Dane, and Tim Storm. Again, another 6 guys that represented that era, that time. And then lastly, now the Lightning 1 era, Billy Corgan era, whatever you want to call it, we kick off with Tim Storm, and the title is defended and lost and won by Nick Aldis. And then at All In, Cody Rhodes wins the belt. And then at the NWA 70th anniversary, Aldis wins that title back. So all in all, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. 38 men have held the 10 pounds of gold. Synonymous with the National Wrestling Alliance, has represented promotions like WCW, has represented promotions like ECW, has represented promotions like TNA, like Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And now it's firmly placed as the top prize of Billy Corgan's National Wrestling Alliance, and today it celebrates its 48th birthday. So we tip our hat to you, 10 pounds of gold, because God bless you. You've gone through some history, and one of the greatest championships of all time. Don't at me. You can't fight me on this one. It's one of the best, most beautiful belts in the business today. Whew. Deep breath. Been a little under the weather, guys, so bear with me. I'm going to do my best to give you a good show today. We are up against it because NWA Power kicks off its Champion Series. That's kind of interesting. Today's the birthday of the 10 pounds of gold, and we're kicking off the Championship Series on NWA Power. I have no idea what this is about. I have very little understanding of what a Championship Series is. There's been little information floating on the internet. If you read the spoilers, you might know what it is. I have no clue. I have no idea. Man, this hat looks jacked up on this podcast. These are not the hats that are available in the Shop Zone, just so you know. These are one-offs. So I want to say hi and hello to everyone who's here watching. We've got Heebs in the house, Jimmy LB, Willie Bowen, Terry McDermott, Lamb, Son, Vu, the best damn man in the business. Fiona's in the house. Fiona, how you doing? We've got Dodie. We've got Sean Mega. We got our good friend Rick Del Santo at the PWZ podcast. Make sure you check out his channel, like and subscribe, follow him. He does some great work. It has a lot of good interviews. I can't support my buddy Rick enough. Check him out. Dave Scooby's in the house. And let's get to some of your comments. Don't forget Brent Albright, Blue Demon. No, Willie, no way can I forget those guys. I got to watch Brent Albright and Adam Pearce tear it up all over this country. I mean, back then, the YouTube was in its infancy, so we only got clips of wrestling, right? You didn't get full matches, and I got to watch Brent Albright wrestle quite regularly at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, but by then he was no longer World's Heavyweight Champion. In fact, I got to see Brent Albright wrestle a young Willie Mack in one of those early NWA Showcase matches. Dave Scooby would like to remind all of you to like, subscribe, and share. I do appreciate that. Thank you for that shout out, Dave. Sean Mega says Damian Wayne was robbed. I gotta go with you on that one, brother. I hate the fact that Damian Wayne isn't a former World's Heavyweight Champion. It was all said and done, and some people have accosted me, have said that my message board was the reason why he didn't win the title, and to that I say nay, nay. It was the NWA not being able to be creative, and we're looking for alternative means to create controversy instead of booking better. So hang on just a second. I just realized my fan was on, and I think that messes up the sound, so I hope you guys can still hear me okay. Terry McDermott says that 10 pounds of gold has been everywhere. You're not kidding, right? So, I mean, we're looking at these matches. I mean, we're talking about it was defended regularly in Puerto Rico. It was regularly defended in New Zealand. It was defended in Japan. It was defended in Australia, in Germany, the UK, Canada, Mexico. I mean, if there is a World's Heavyweight Championship, no other title could boast about being in all the places it's been as the 10 pounds of gold. I mean, WWE might make the original WWE Championship might be close in comparison, but in terms of historically where the belt's traveled and how it's been defended, nobody can touch the NWA. Sean Mega says, Mike Rapata and Gary Steele. Hey, man, I will have nobody begrudging the names of Mike Rapata or Gary Steele, because remember, this is all interconnected. You cannot get to Adam Pearce if you don't have Mike Rapata carrying the 10 pounds of gold in the lean years, right? You can't have Gary Steele, you can't have, you can't have Shinya Hashimoto if you don't have Gary Steele. At some point, if the NWA title wasn't being defended, then it ceases to exist. And if you would have brought it back later, it wouldn't be the same. You know what I mean? Like, if the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship lay dormant for 20 years and then they decided to bring it back, would it really be the same title? Or would it just be a knockoff, a ripoff, a spinoff, whatever you want to call it? It's not the same. See, that's the difference between the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship and every other title belt that's out there. This belt has been... not the belt, but the lineage goes back to 1948. I'm not going to talk about how other people try to stretch it out to 1905. I'm not here for that. I don't believe that. 1948, the National Wrestling Alliance was formed. July 18th, just a few days ago. And as it worked its way through, every champion carried it to the next level. Orville Brown was the first world's champion, but Lou Thez was the guy that unified that championship with all the other regional titles. But if you don't go through, like, Orville Brown, you don't get to Lou Thez. If you don't get to Lou Thez, you never get to, like, Gene Kiniski. You never get to Harley Race. You never get to Jack Briscoe. You never get to Terry Funk. You never get to Dory Funk, right? These are all interconnected. So you pull out one random name. Even the Sheik, as much as I don't like the Sheik, guys, I don't like the Sheik. I've said it here, there, everywhere. You know, people say that Jay Cal's a Nick Aldis hater. I've never once hated Nick Aldis. I do hate the Sheik. I can say that. But I would not take away his title. He won it. The NWA crowned him champion. He defeated Colt Cabana. I might not have agreed with the choice, but there's no doubting it. You can't take it back once it's there. So, again, all of these World Heavyweight Championships, they're all connected. You can't change any of it. That's all. The legitimacy, you know, when someone wins that title, you can't change it. So, I don't laugh at Mike Rapata. I don't laugh at Gary Steele. They have just as much value as guys like Rob Conway and Adam Pearce. Okay, maybe not as much. Okay, let's not carry it away. They don't carry the same value, but they did their job. And if it wasn't for them doing their job, we wouldn't be where we are today. Remember, Billy Corgan has said famously, when he bought the NWA, and remember, when he bought the NWA, we're only talking about 2 or 3 years removed from being on New Japan Pro Wrestling. When he bought the NWA, we're only a few years away from it being on New Japan television. And people criticized his purchase. What are you buying? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What he bought was the most legendary legacy brand in all of professional sports. 1948, pro wrestling. There's no one that's been around as longer except for CMLL, and even they went through a name change. They went through a whole little brand change, so it's all based on who you want to talk to. So I want to get to more of you guys' questions. Sorry, I went on my tirade there. But I openly mock Mike Rapata. But the guy was a champion. You can't take it away. You know what's funny? The whole list of names that I mentioned, you know that Shane Douglas is still recognized as a world's heavyweight champion, even though he threw the belt down. They never not recognized him for that. They never stripped him of it. They never voided that match. Nothing. He's still a world's heavyweight champion as far as the NWA is concerned. And he blatantly disrespected the title more so than anybody else. It's kind of funny how those things work. I see Val's in the house. Welcome, Valerie. Willie Bowen brings up Bobo Brazil, and as much as you got to respect the man that Bobo Brazil was, I mean, he broke color lines. Like, this guy really was a game changer. He was akin to pro wrestling as Jackie Robinson was to baseball. He did break down color barriers. He was the WWA World's Heavyweight Championship, but the NWA never formally recognized his win as World's Heavyweight Champion. So although he did beat Buddy Rogers, the match was never officially counted. And you know, you can't rewrite history. It's one of I had this debate with Gary Horn recently on the Discord servers, and you just can't rewrite history. As much as Bobo Brazil deserves to be legitimized, and as much as he should have been World's Heavyweight Champion, the fact of the matter is he just wasn't. And we can't go back and rewrite history because it opens up too much. He never was officially champion, and we'll just leave it at that. Let's see. Adoti says he was a fan of the Sheik, his supporters to be champion back then until the fiasco, of course. You know, Dodi, I'm with you, man. Like, you were a part of that era. You were there on the message boards. You would see those posts. I was very supportive of the Sheik. I had his wrestlers on my podcast, you know. I had a lot of their roster, you know, from what was it, Pro Wrestling? Oh God, what was the name of the promotion? I can't remember. But we talked to a lot of his guys. We talked to I'm sorry, my brain isn't working as well as it used to. But we were really supported. And we had a very good relationship, the Sheik and I. I mean, he would post links from our podcast, our website, onto his website. There was a lot of good... it was a good relationship until it wasn't. And, you know, even when he won the title, I mean, I had no problem with him as a person winning the title. I just... my problem was when he forfeited the title. And all of that good feelings, the relationship we had kind of went by the wayside. So I mean, I still appreciate what he did for this site, Joseph Samil, Joseph Kabibo, the Sheik, whatever you want to call him. But I have a problem with now putting my money into his pocket. That's why it's been so hard for me to come around to MLW. Joseph Kabibo runs a promotion locally here in Southern California called PCW Ultra. I haven't attended one event, and some of my favorite SoCal wrestlers are going there wrestling, and I have a problem supporting it because I don't like Joseph Kabibo, and we are not cool. So... Sean Mega says, what is this championship series all about? And for that, I have no idea. I just don't know. Dodie, tell me how you really feel about Craig Classic. Wow. And Valerie, I'm glad you're here. Appreciate you being here. Dodie says, Shane Douglas is a loser. He's not even an ECW legend. When you think about ECW, you think about Tommy Dreamer, Sandman, Sabu, Taz, even C.W. Anderson, not Shane Douglas. You know, Dodie, I mean, I think of RVD. I do think of Shane Douglas. And I don't love Shane Douglas either, but I do think of him. I mean, he did a lot. And then, like, what Shane Douglas did with XPW, which was not anything connected to ECW, but he carried that franchise for a few years, too. Jonathan Burrell says, hey, J-Cal, hope you're well. Thank you. Can you see a wrestler on the roster who could be the next champion? And who would be more than just holding a champion for Aldis to win it back? You know, the guy that I really want to see win the title, and I have no control over these things, right? Nobody's asking J-Cal for suggestions, but I don't think there's anybody on the roster more prepared to be the next World's Heavyweight Champion than the Pope, Elijah Burke. I think that guy is a five-tool player. He can cut promos. He can put guys over. He can put guys over when he's winning. He can put guys over when he's losing. He has a great look, and I really feel like he could be more than just a branch to the next champion. I think he could hold that belt with some legitimacy and some long-term legitimacy. And, you know, in almost every way, he rivals Nick Aldis. I mean, Aldis is bigger. Aldis is stronger. Aldis might even have better promo skills, right? but I think the Pope wrestles just as well, if not better. And the Pope gives you some reach, right? And I'm not saying that it's necessary, but it's been a long time since we've had a world heavyweight champion as a person of color. I'm not saying that's the defining reason to give somebody a belt, but when you're a 5-tool player, you might be able to reach a greater audience with the Pope as world's heavyweight champion. And I don't want Nick Aldis to disappear. I don't want him to go away. I want Nick Aldis to continue to pursue the 10 pounds of gold, or maybe even partner with Tom Latimer as a tag team. I would never want Nick Aldis to leave. As far as Nick Aldis is wrestling, I hope he's wrestling for the National Wrestling Alliance. Let's see. Lamb says, what else was announced for today, or only the Championship Series? Like, that's just it. All I know is the Championship Series. I haven't seen anything advertised about anything. And it's kind of, I don't want to say disappointing. It's mysterious. Let's see what this is all about. There's kind of this one of the drawbacks of recording 2 months worth of programming over the course of 4 days, 3 or 4 days, is that you lose out on the ability to pivot. You lose out on the ability to change things up. You lose out on the ability to start hyping the next event the way it should be. Now, they did an okay job for When Our Shadows Fall. That, of course, it ended with the Battle Royal and Trevor Murdoch winning that Battle Royal. The 13 that became 15-man Battle Royal to challenge for Nick Aldis. But I mean, you lose something. And it was kind of a hollow built, because we all kind of, if you didn't read the spoilers, the writing was on the raw wall anyway. Now, the 24th, which is this weekend, we're going to have both titles on the line. We have Trevor Murdoch challenging Nick Aldis for the 10 pounds of gold in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the same night, we have Kamille defending the Burke against Kenzie Paige. Now, we don't know what's going to happen at this show. I mean, common sense would tell you that the NWA is going to just have these nice matches for this nice show. You know, this is an autograph signing. It's a convention. So there's going to be, like, you know, a lot of older wrestling fans who hadn't been to shows in a while. There's going to be some new faces. There's going to be a lot of wrestling fans, you know, the historical wrestling fans. So you're going to try to put on the best NWA show you can, right? Because you want to get these folks to subscribe to the network to order the pay-per-views. There's an audience that did not come to the to Fight TV. There's a huge audience that they're starting to get back on YouTube. But they need to get that audience to order the pay-per-views, and they need to get that audience to buy the shows on Fight, the weekly subscription. So I imagine you're going to see some pretty good wrestling, but I don't imagine you're going to see much news coming out of Charlotte this weekend. But those two matches have implications for both EMPOWERRR and the NWA 73rd anniversary. If Nick Aldis is successful in his title defense against Trevor Murdoch, are we going to see Trevor Murdoch versus Nick Aldis 3 at the 73rd? And how are they going to build that up with Charlotte, with what's happening on Power, the Championship Series? I mean, how does that build up to the 73rd? And then, of course, EMPOWERRR, they've already said at the press conference, they had Kamille who said, like, hey, she's going to wrestle the winner of the Women's Invitational Cup at EMPOWERRR. But, of course, she has to get through Kenzie Paige first, and then she has to defend the title at EMPOWERRR. So she's going to have at least 2 more matches before we get to the 73rd anniversary. So there's a lot that could still happen. But my question is, how do they build that up? How do they build that up in the meantime? Because the shows that we're watching now, I mean, the Championship Series, how does that tie into it? Now, I'm sure the NWA will find a way to make it work. I'm sure the NWA has an opportunity to make it work. But that remains to be seen. And they're holding their cards pretty close to the chest. Okay, so back to your comments. We don't need to talk more about the Sheik. We already said what I need to say. Dodie said, let's talk about the chase. Both EMPOWERRR and 73rd have been half filled. So far, so good. But I think the 2 Power tapings, that seems underhyped. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard, right? I don't think it's the best idea to... See, when you attach the pay-per-view, especially 2 pay-per-views back-to-back, with the TV tapings, there's going to be less excitement about the TV tapings, especially when they're taped on a Monday and a Tuesday. It's kind of hard to do that. But at the same time, like, you've got this space, you're going to need it for those days anyways. You might as well make the best out of it and try to get what you can. I don't know what they're charging for tickets for any of the events. I didn't really look because I don't plan on being there. But there's nothing like watching the NWA live. I could say that as someone who was there in the Georgia Public Broadcasting Studios. There's an energy, there's some electricity. But as we mentioned on the Alliance Guys podcast, you can't keep expecting the fanboys to carry the audience. You can't keep expecting guys like Gary Horn and Front Row and some of those guys to just keep going to all of these shows. Like, I can't travel to St. Louis every time they're in St. Louis. I can't always go to Atlanta to be at these shows. You have to build a local audience. And as there's speculation that the wrestling at the Chase might become more of a regular thing, man, if someone could forward this to the NWA, my thoughts on wrestling at the Chase, this should be their weekly regional program. I think you keep NWA Power exactly what it is on Fight, and that features your superstars, the top names of the NWA. Wrestling at the Chase, I think you do the same taping schedule, you follow the same model, you feature the national championship, occasionally bring in the world champion and the tag champions and the women's champion, keep the TV champion on Power, and you build up that local audience. That Wrestling for the Chase, for 24 years, that was a historic NWA venue that could be again. And I don't think you need to put this on YouTube, although it'd be great for the YouTube fans. But you could put maybe some matches, or I wouldn't put the full program available for fans on YouTube. I would make it a St. Louis and a regional area program. That way, it's a must-see in that area. And again, you maybe take some of the matches or some of the highlights and make a clip show and do it a 30-minute show on YouTube or a 45-minute show on YouTube. I'm all over the place today, but I still think that's a good idea. If anyone wants to put that in Billy Corgan's head, Wrestling at the Chase, NWA Power, you do one set of tapings 1 week, or 1 month, you do the next set of tapings the next month, and you just keep cycling the content through. And then if there's ever anything like a global pandemic lockdown again, you have tons of matches that you could start airing on YouTube that have never been seen before. Okay, so more talk. Jimmy LB says, Pope as world champion? That'd make me happy AF. I'm telling you, man. I bought this shirt to wear to the pay-per-view when this match happens. Now, I hope it doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen at the 73rd, because I'm not going to be there, but I think that's the money match. And Trevor Murdoch is a great competitor. Trevor Murdoch is a diehard with the NWA. His contributions have been like 3 generations of the NWA. We're talking about the Bob Trowbridge era with World Legion Wrestling and David Marquez being a part of the NWA. We're talking about the NWA Showcase era, again, Bob Trowbridge, when Trevor Murdoch was part of the NWA. Then we talk about the Bruce Tharp era, where Trevor Murdoch had made a few appearances for the NWA. But this is the first time that he's been treated like a true individual challenge, and him winning the national title at Primetime Live was a huge deal. I think that was a very awesome moment. Unfortunately, they didn't give him much of a run with that national championship, and I regret that, and I resent that, because I think he had a lot more story to be told. But I know the NWA needed a figure to put up against Aldis, and that matchup with Trevor Murdoch and Aldis, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for good storytelling. Now, whether you agree the NWA took advantage of that or not, that's entirely up to you. But, I mean, we're talking about a guy who was trained by Harley Race. And you talk about a guy who attended Harley Race camps and kind of had the best of both worlds. Like, he didn't really train with Harley Race, but he got the rub from Harley Race. And let me rephrase that, because I'm not trying to diminish what Nick Aldis did. Like, don't get me wrong. Aldis put in the work to get to where he is. He had a lot of... Aldis was very good at capitalizing on opportunities that were presented to him. That's how he got where he's at. But don't get me wrong, he had to work very hard to get where he's at. I mean, he's got a great look. That doesn't happen by accident. You don't put a needle in your butt and all of a sudden look like Nick Aldis. You have to put in work. And he could wrestle well. He's not a slouch in the ring. He's not watching Hulk Hogan in the ring. The man gets out there and works. So he had to work hard to get to this point. I don't begrudge any of that. I think he's a great wrestler, and I think, if anything, my biggest complaint is we just don't get to see enough of that great Nick Aldis work. We get plenty of promos, and it's actually been quite refreshing this last season of Power. We've had hardly any Nick Aldis. And it makes me like, oh, I kind of wish we had some more right now. And I think that's what, again, they needed to do that. They're doing things the right way. Might not be your favorite, but they're doing things the right way. When they reintroduce Aldis, the people are going to be happy to see him. So, yeah, to the point I was trying to get, Trevor Murdoch is a great challenge for the 10 pounds of gold, but I don't know if he's a long-term world's heavyweight champion. Of course, this is just my opinion. What matters is your opinion. What do you think? Sound off. Answer the poll. I mean, I didn't put a poll question, but do you want Trevor Murdoch as your world's heavyweight champion? Type yes if you want to see Trevor Murdoch defeat Nick Aldis for the 10 pounds of gold, whether it be this weekend in Charlotte or at the 73rd anniversary show. It doesn't matter. If you want to see it, just type yes. Excuse me. Terry McDermott says the Pope has the class and the skill to be world champion. Absolutely. Dodie says Nick should step down and become king maker than king himself. I like that, Dodie. That's actually, yeah. And don't get me wrong. Remember, he's not the one booking the show. This is Billy Corgan's baby. This is Billy Corgan's booking. All of it. Good, bad, or indifferent. This is Billy's show. Lamb says, oh man, don't remind us of the season between Back for the Attack and When Our Shadows Fall. What a time that was. It wasn't great. Didn't love it. Willie Bowen says, don't forget about Shinya Hashimoto, another former world heavyweight champion. I didn't, Willie. I got Shinya Hashimoto because he's also one of my favorites. In fact, Jimmy LB and I were in, was it Huntington Beach, California? Was it Huntington Beach? Ultimate Pro Wrestling had a relationship with 01. And 01 brought in Shinya Hashimoto. And he came out and he had the belt on his shoulder and he addressed the UPW locker room. And out came mini wrestlers. Tom, oh God, I forgot his name. Oh, jeez. Anyways, the heavyweight champion of UPW, Tom Howard. Tom Howard was there. And I think the angle was to try to set up Tom Howard versus Shinya Hashimoto, but Samoa Joe was there. And Samoa Joe versus Shinya Hashimoto was electric. And they got in each other's faces, and you all of a sudden forgot about Tom Howard, and you were just foaming at the mouth for Shinya Hashimoto and Samoa Joe for the 10 pounds of gold. Of course, no match took place there, and a couple months later, Impact Wrestling TNA started off, and Ken Shamrock was the champion. So obviously we never got what we wanted, but they certainly got us thinking about it. Willie Bowen says he thinks Tom Latimer should be the next NWA World Heavyweight Champion, and I don't hate that. I don't. I think Latimer's so undervalued. He's probably the most underutilized guy on the roster. You know, they put him in a tag team. They put him with Chris Adonis. And he's okay. The Wild Cards were a good tag team. Him and Adonis are a decent tag team. But this guy has so much potential. In the national title, there's a lack of challengers. The TV title, there's hasn't been as many challengers that are of upper echelon, upper roster. So I wouldn't have a problem with that. Jonathan Burrell, I suggested in the comments on the last podcast that Murdoch Aldis 3 should be a cage match. I would love that, Jonathan. I would love a cage match. I'm not sure if Wrestling at the Chase could support it, but that would be amazing. And it would be a good way to sell the pay-per-view. Sean Mega says they should have done a bundle. I mean, they did do a bundle for EMPOWERRR and the 73rd, but I don't think they did any kind of discount for the folks who subscribe, which I think that's kind of a missed opportunity. You should reward the fans who were, kind of helping keeping the engine on. Fiona wishes she was going. Fiona, I wish you were going too. I think it kind of sucks, but that's the world that we live in right now. Hopefully it's not their last time at the Chase, and hopefully the next time they're there, you have an opportunity to go, and maybe I'll meet you there. Dodie says, Trevor is hometown St. Louis guy. That's enough for the 73rd hype. And remember, for local fans, the Chase is the biggest star itself. Absolutely. Let's not forget, if the NWA is the largest historic wrestling brand, then they need to lean on these historic opportunities. Now, in Southern California, we had the Grand Olympic, but that is now a Korean church. And unfortunately, not a lot of wrestling's happening there. But these places like the Chase, Madison Square Garden will always be the definitive home for the WWE in New York. Even when it's not, it's still the definitive home because of so many great moments that happened there. The Chase had so many historic moments. I wish that this was a more regular thing for the NWA, because you're right, the Chase is the star. The 10 pounds of gold is the star. The Chase is the star. The other pieces could almost be interchangeable. I think if you bring the 10 pounds of gold to the Chase, you're going to have a sellout crowd. Lamb says, but can the NWA afford another brand financially? I mean, interest is there, I think. Lamb, I think the thing is right, like, Fight is helping to pay for this show. Fight is helping to pay for Power. I believe they offset some of the production costs. So right now, if they're having an audience, a live audience, that means that there's money being generated. The way they were able to keep afloat on YouTube for as long as they did is because it was the live gate that was paying for the show. The merchandise, the live gate, that money was coming in. If you produce a television show, it does cost money to produce TV. It's not free. But you already have kind of a crew that it's in place. And if not, you could hire a crew locally. And getting that show on a locally regional sports network or a regional channel in Missouri, I mean, you would be making money from advertising. That's what keeps the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood afloat, is they do advertising, they do sales. Those shows, they have to be on TV in order to make money. And I'm not saying that's the only way the NWA can make money, but if they're making money from a live gate, which is something that Championship Wrestling from Hollywood doesn't have, merchandise sales, which, again, I don't know Hollywood numbers, but Hollywood is able to do it with the program that Hollywood has, and they're on here locally in California and a few other states. But if you could get an NWA program backed by live ticket sales, merchandise, VIP meet and greets, and then advertising dollars, and maybe even a sponsorship, why not? And if Billy has to lose a little bit money to get this going, to get it started, I think that's well worth the investment. It's almost like starting over while still have the safety net of having Power on Fight that's still generating income, because now we're paying to watch that. Plus, on top of that, the pay-per-view numbers. And again, we're adding live attendance. We're adding live people on these shows. So, I mean, there's a lot more business that we could talk about, but I don't see why that can't happen. Willie says the NWA Pro Wrestling should come to SoCal. I don't think it's going to happen. I think with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I don't think Billy Corgan really has a desire to come to California. There's a lot more historically rich states. I mean, if we're going to talk about it, DKM brought up Houston as being a good state, Charlotte, Georgia, St. Louis. I mean, you could even say maybe some more Midwestern states. But I think that's it, man. I don't think you need to come to California. As cool as it would be for me personally, I think that's unnecessary. I don't think it's a good fit. Fiona says the UK. You know that Nick wants to be there with that 10 pounds of gold. You know he wants to be in his home country representing the National Wrestling Alliance. And I think it would be good for them too. And for me, I think it would be smart to develop a strategic partnership. Preston City Wrestling. What if Preston City Wrestling became kind of like an NWA affiliate? What if we just called them NWA UK or something like that? I know that's a territory system. I know that doesn't really work these days. But I really feel like there would be a great deal of synergy if you could get both companies on board, and it would help build both brands. Fiona says at least Nick and Tom. Well, if you're going to get Tom, you're also going to get Kamille, so there's a three-way. I didn't mean it like that. Terry McDermott says Pope, the next world champion, and then Jordan Clearwater. Terry, that's a big jump. That's a big jump for the Pope. I'm not against it, but that's a huge jump for, not the Pope, but Jordan Clearwater. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see him put in his dues, though. Maybe the TV title first. Let's start off small and build our way up. Dodie says it's better that the NWA stay at Georgia Public Broadcasting while occasionally visiting the Chase and also touring other historic territories. Dodie, I don't have a problem with that either. I mean, that could work. Personally, if they were doing monthly tapings instead of every 2 months, That would make a lot of sense. 1 month in Georgia, 1 month somewhere else. And you would really have this opportunity to capitalize on an audience that would be hungry, especially if you go to these NWA towns historically that were connected to the NWA. I mean, I don't know about Portland, but for years, Portland had this vibrant wrestling community that produced guys like Raven and Roddy Piper spent a lot of time there. Maybe Portland would be on that list, but who knows? I really think it would make sense. Jimmy LB agrees. Hebe says, I have St. Louis tickets, so yes, I want to see him win. Nice. Dodie says, one interesting thing has to be revealed that Billy has been in talks about returning NWA to the chase soon after he bought the NWA. NWA returning to the chase actually has been planned since day one. That to me, that's extremely interesting and kind of further proves my point that it makes a lot of sense. Now, I remember that Atlanta building came through Dave Marquez and his relationship with Lou Seals. You'll see that on every episode of Power. Special thanks to Lou Seals. That original building was supposed to be Dave Marquez produced Championship Wrestling from Georgia, Championship Wrestling from Atlanta. Now we're seeing into fruition. They're in the other venue, but originally that's where they were planning on going. Terry McDermott says, I should say Trevor, then Pope, and Jordan Clearwater in the distant future. Okay, I'm good with that. Willie Bowen says, Trevor Murdoch, if he beats Nick Aldis, will have the short title reign. That might be true, but I think it's still... there's nothing wrong with a short title reign. There's nothing wrong with it. Mostly, the NWA could benefit from Nick Aldis playing a different role. To me, it's a little stale. And I'm not saying that Nick Aldis is bad. I'm just saying he's been on top for so long. We're talking about 1,000 days. It was so exciting when Ric Flair would have that chase and someone would come after him and take the belt off of him. But then you'd get that more center-focused Ric Flair, a different nature boy. And he'd come out there and he would go after that belt and he would be hungry. He'd be starving. So I think it would be interesting to see Aldis in that chase role. We haven't seen him in the chase role since 2018. That's 3 years ago. Just my thoughts. Nick and Kamille should do 2 out of 3 falls at the chase. Do it in an old school way. Dodie, I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Willie Bowen says, is the Sam Houston Coliseum still open in Houston? I'm not sure about that. The chase may be too classy to have a cage match. Good point, Terry. Jonathan Burrell says, I'd love to see Pope versus Joe Henning for the world's title. Hey, man, if Joe Henning is still wrestling, I'd love to see him involved with the NWA, but I haven't seen his name pop up anywhere, and I know his no-compete clause has been gone for a long time. Dodie says, I purchased NWA at the Chase, the bundle, and it's my first time spending money to NWA. Whoa, that's cool, Dodie. I'm glad, man. Triducka says he predicts Slice Boogie being the crush of the War Kings. Rest in peace to the late great Brian. Oh, I see what you're saying, Triduckus. That he would be the third man. I don't hate that either, but I feel like maybe he's already the third man in the bodega, and now his time in MLW. I'm not sure we're going to see Slice Boogie back in the NWA. Personally, I would like to see it, but I don't know. Scott Steiner said the NWA has been very boring lately to him, and he's having trouble enjoying it. Scotty, you're not alone, brother. Dave Scooby says, if the NWA can do some pay-per-views and tapings in St. Louis, Atlanta, and then maybe Nashville, that's the other good city, Philly or Baltimore, new crowds and fresh energy as well as different local enhancement talent. Absolutely. And you never know when you might find the next, what's the word they use? You might find that next rare gem. There's an expression I can't remember it all. My memory sucks right now, and I'm not feeling super great. But I feel like the NWA could absolutely benefit from touring in these areas. Just now you're talking about an added cost of shipping, talents, rings, or renting local rings, production crews, all of this stuff. When they're in Georgia Public Broadcasting Studio, there's already a built-in studio. I mean, so they have everything they need. The cameras are there, the control deck is there, where they do the directing. It's all set up. When you go to the Chase, it's not going to be as all set up as it should be, but that doesn't mean that they can't make something work. And now when you're going to different cities, I mean, I think on the Alliance Guys podcast, someone mentioned that Impact was looking to move to Las Vegas. If Impact were to move to Las Vegas, that would open up the Skyline Studios in Nashville, which I know that's where the another place that they were thinking of taping the NWA back before all of this kind of came to fruition. Scott Steiner says, Power Surge last week was hard to watch as well. I haven't even finished it, and I don't plan on it either. Hopefully this week it'll be better. You know, Scott, I'm going to tell you, I kind of enjoyed that episode of Power Surge. I thought it was very, I thought it was interesting. They did a solid job of wrestling, with a nice little tribute to Josephus. Now, I think this episode might have been better served a week ago, or I'm not exactly sure when, but I know Josephus recently had a birthday, and that maybe if they could have tied this episode around his birthday, or they could have used this episode early on after his passing to kind of commemorate his contributions to the NWA. But I didn't hate it. I actually thought it was one of the better programs they had. My only criticism is they should have had maybe some more interview segments, more of the recaps. I mean, what Power Surge seems to have decided to become was the show that featured recap, keep catching everybody up. Now, if they're going away from that format, great. But if they're going to keep in format, then they should have that part of this show as well. I mean, I guess it's a little picky on my end, but I thought I would have liked that. Doty says the NWA touring its historic area is awesome, but remember, they mostly can only draw 1,000 to 1,500. Even 2,000 is a banger for them. So no MSG, any JCP historic arenas, small venue like the Chase still possible. Absolutely, Doty. I don't want anyone to think that I'm pulling the cart before the horse. You know, they were going to do the pay-per-view, the Crockett Cup 2020 was going to be at... I can't remember the location, but it was the university's like basketball gym. It's a smaller arena. It would have been perfect. A little bit bigger, like the Carbus Arena that they did in 2019 for the Crockett Cup was excellent. Like a perfect venue for that. There was a sold out crowd. Of course, you had stars from Ring of Honor, New Japan, and AAA, but I think it would work again in that smaller type arena. I don't think you need to go huge. You don't bring the show to Phillips Arena, but you bring the show to the Carbus Arena, sure. And I think wrestling at the Chase might make a lot of sense too. Willie Bowen says the Mid-Atlantic, Louisiana area where NWA affiliate places, Billy should have power there. Absolutely. I mean, I think the NWA's responsibility as stewards of the brand is to try to connect this NWA with the NWA of yesteryear. And I think you can easily do that by reminding people what the 10 pounds of gold is, which their social media has been on fire lately. They've been doing a bang-up job of connecting the past, present, and the future. And I think if you run these cities that they've been running, Charlotte, Atlanta, now St. Louis, I mean, look, man, those three cities are pretty significant and have a lot of importance in the NWA. Maybe at some point they'll return to Nashville. Maybe at some point they'll return to the New Jersey area. I'm not really sure. The Mid-Atlantic stretches a great territory. Louisiana is Louisiana is a little bit more complicated because I know they have more restrictions for their performers, their athletes, their wrestlers. But I still think what they're doing is the right thing. I think their approach has been getting a lot better. And I will celebrate Billy Corgans for having the clairvoyance, the vision to take the NWA to the Chase. I think this is a slam dunk. I don't think there's a better place they could have the 73rd anniversary show. So I'm excited for them. Jonathan Burrell says, if Power goes on the road, I would love to see the NWA champion versus the champion of the best local promotion during each Power taping. Cross promotion for both parties. I think, I don't know. The thing about Nick Aldis and what everyone, someone recently tweeted, hey, he had 33 defenses in 30 months. That's pretty good. Absolutely. But let's not forget, since the advent of Power, Aldis has defended the title 13 times. And I think 3 of those were on episodes of Power. So you can't get overly excited about the 10 pounds of gold being defended in other wrestling promotions just because they're on the road. Would it be a smart move? Yeah. Would it be fun? Yeah. You know, I think the better way to sell that is have Aldis go to those towns ahead of the TV tapings. Have Aldis go to those shows ahead of them of a month before their shows. If they're partnering with a local promotion, then go to, let's just say Texas, right? Let's just say Aldis goes to SWE Fury and wrestles a match in Lubbock, Texas on their card before the NWA goes to Lubbock, Texas a month later, 2 weeks later. That would be interesting. That would be fun. Scott says Billy should watch a couple of episodes of Mid-South 84 and mix it with the current stuff, and I think it would be a lot better. I think he draws his inspiration from more stuff from the Chase and more of that Midwest, Central States wrestling. But yeah, I mean, look, he this is his vision. This is his product. As it was explained to me recently, like, look, he's making the show that he wants to make. It's not what I want. It's not what you want. But hopefully there's elements of it that make you interested. But this is ultimately Billy's show, and he's not really open to suggestions, apparently. Sean Mega says the next stop should be Texas. I think Houston would be a smart play. The history with Paul Bosch, even the recent history with what Bruce Tharp and Chris Ronquillo were doing out there in Houston, I think it would be a great play. Not sure if it'll happen, but that NWA is still pretty well known in that region. I mean, that's where Tim Storm and Jack Stain were defending the 10 pounds of gold, so it would make a lot of sense for the modern NWA to come into that territory, but we'll see. Steiner says the NWA should go to Memphis. It wasn't really an NWA town, but it was a great wrestling town. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a reason why Championship Wrestling from Hollywood opened up in Memphis, and that's why you've got the new Memphis territory for the United Wrestling Network. Memphis is a great wrestling town, and Dustin Starr and Maria Starr know that, and they're capitalizing on it. And if you guys are very interested at all, you should check out the United Wrestling Network's Championship Wrestling from Memphis. They're doing a lot of different things. You know, they're growing as a brand. They don't have superstars, but some more well-known names are coming to their territory. They recently had Lance Archer in town. Teddy Long is supposed to be on the next show. Don't be surprised if somebody like Scott Steiner shows up. I mean, SWE Fury's using Scott Steiner. Not Scott Steiner in the crowd, but Scott Steiner in pro wrestling. Dodie says Missouri also has a strict state athletic commission rules. That's why I don't expect the Chase will be there regularly. Running high profile in St. Louis is tricky and hard. I get that too, but I also think that it makes a lot of sense for you to jump through some hoops to make that a thing. St. Louis is underserved as a wrestling area. Remember Metro Pro? They benefited from wrestling in that same that same market as the St. Louis area. And there's a lot of promotions that do run in that area, but a lot of it is undervalued, right? I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I know the market saturation of professional wrestling fans in St. Louis, but historically it was such a great town that if you build it, they will come. If you bring good wrestling to the area, it's going to be there, and I think there's a lot of benefit to that. So with that being said, wow, 58 minutes, guys. We rocked and rolled this show, and I wasn't even on my best game. I attribute all of the fun that we had today to you guys, Dodie and everyone else in the room, Sean, Terry, Fiona, Jimmy, Sean Mega, Willie Bowen, Scotty Steiner, Dave Scooby. You guys have helped me bring the show today. I do appreciate it. If I left any of you out, I apologize, but like I said, I'm not feeling that great. Next podcast, well, that's the thing. Next Tuesday, there will not be a pre-party. Not even a taped one. We won't be doing a pre-party next week. We're going to be retooling, recharging, and figuring out better ways to execute this podcast for you guys. So next week there will not be a pre-party. However, this Thursday there will be the Alliance Guys podcast where DK, hopefully Kevin, the former World Junior Heavyweight Champion, and myself will be breaking down this championship series. Now, I don't know anything about it. We've hardly talked about it, but hopefully we're going to see some good wrestling tonight, and hopefully the storylines will be make a lot of sense, and hopefully you enjoy the show, because that's what this is all about. We're here to enjoy pro wrestling, so let's do it. let's have fun. With that being said, just want to say one more time, happy birthday to the 10 pounds of gold. Happy birthday to Blue Demon Jr. yesterday. Happy birthday to the NWA, who is now 73 years old as of July the 18th, which was just 2 days ago. This has been so much fun. Thank you guys. I needed this. I was feeling down. You guys brought me up. So, as always, if you guys want to buy some cool merchandise, hats that are better than this, you could go to alliance-wrestling.com and check out the merch section. We also have the Discord page. Links will be in the bio, or in the Links will be in the description for our Discord, the merchandise, all that good stuff. If you do appreciate this podcast, give it a thumbs up. If you enjoy being here each and every week, make sure you at least like and subscribe. If you really like it, share it with your friends. If you hate it, don't bother doing anything. Just hit the X button. But until next time, friends, Roman countrymen, we'll see you at the matches. Goodbye.